Well, yeah, I was here last year filling in for an unfortunate event when David passed away, and they asked me to come in and do the show, which we did. Now they've asked me back, which is, of course, very good news. I have played here before as a solo act, and also, of course, at Disneyland in LA many times, California Adventure. So I've had quite many experiences. The Disney company, including working at the Disney Channel. I co-wrote and produced a pilot script for the Disney Channel, and been associated many times with them. In fact, in the early 70s, I was up for the voice of Mickey Mouse, along with a bunch of other people. But I remember going back to at least 3 or 4 callbacks, and then I was told years later that it was down to me and another guy. And the other guy got it in the early 70s, became the voice of Mickey Mouse. And then I believe that he might have just passed away not too long ago, and they've replaced him. But it was almost me going, "Hiya, kids! Hiya, hiya! Oh boy, it's Micky Dolenz tonight at American Pavilion." It was almost me. Let's see what else to do with Disney. Well, besides being a fan and having a crush on Annette Funicello when I was a kid. Worked many times, and it's absolutely wonderful. I think they should give, all the operation of all the cities to Disney to do. It would be extremely efficient. As far as my career in general, I do solo shows like this with my band and with my sister Coco, who is a great singer. You'll hear her later. I also, of course, go out with the Monkees periodically. We went out with Davey a couple years ago, and then after he passed, we did a kind of a memorial tour last year, very, very successful, like. There has been talks about going out again as the Monkees, nothing firm, written in stone yet. We're going out this spring and summer for some fly dates with David Cassidy and Peter Noon in a show called Teen Idols. But mostly what I've been doing over the years, except for the occasional touring, is musical theater. That's my other major connection with Disney, actually, is I did Aida, the Elton John, Tim Rice musical that Disney produced. I did that for the best part of a couple years on Broadway, and then the national tour. In fact, interesting little side note, once I was in my dressing room towards the end of the run, adding up all the performances that I'd done. And it turns out that I worked on Aida longer than I worked on the Monkees. But I've been doing an awful lot of that musical theater. In fact, I just got back, last year, I was in England doing Hairspray in the West End, London West End, and then the national tour. And I did that for the best part of a year over in the UK. Before that, I did the revival of Pippin, the national tour, and then I did Grease on Broadway and the national tour of Grease. And here I am now. And now a whole bunch of people just arrived, so I'll start over. I'll go back and start over. Well, my career's... You'll have to get those notes from me. Just Q&A, do a Q&A with all these people here, and I might answer a lot of people's questions, and then we can do some one-on-ones.
Whatever you'd like.
Well, Q&A is usually the best thing I find, because it tends to answer a lot of questions.
Sure.
You got one?
So you've been here last year, you've been to Disney World a number of times in the past, and I'm sure you're excited to be back again. You were saying that you were a Disney fan, so I think I know the answer to that question, but as an early Monkees fan, and after performing for so many years, I watched you last year, and I have to imagine, what is it like to see fans of so many different generations continuing to lose their collective minds when they see you get up on stage especially some of the females in the audience, there's still that appeal that you have when you're up there.
No accounting for taste. No, it's by now I'm quite used to it. Even since '86 when we first got back for the first reunion. At that time, then that was 2 generations. Now it's 3 generations. And so, frankly, I'm not surprised. I'm almost surprised if it doesn't happen. At this kind of a venue where everybody can get in, any age and any generation. If you're doing a casino, Vegas casino, of course the kids can't get in. But now I'm quite used to it. Obviously, extremely grateful. I feel very blessed. I'd like to think obviously I had something to do with it, but there was an awful lot of other people involved in the entire Monkee project, specifically, and I always give credit to them in my show. The songwriters. I mean, the legs of a song, the way that it travels across generations is essentially down to initially the writing of the song, whoever wrote the song. And then there's the production, and there's the singing, and there's the music, and there's all that. But great songs, last forever, and you can do them many different ways, and they still work. That's a sign of a great tune. So, I'm very thankful to the songwriters like Jerry Goffman and Carole King and Neil Diamond, Harry Nilsson, Voice and Heart, who wrote some of the biggest hits we had, Neil Sedaka, Paul Williams, just incredible stable of songwriters who don't write a lot of duff tunes. So musically, that tends to, that helps because it obviously the music itself survives and goes on. In the case of the Monkees, of course, we also had a TV show which in itself also had a very powerful pedigree. Bob Rafelson and Bert Schneider, Paul Mazursky, highly great writers, great editors, great producers, and great guest stars. And then, like I say, the 4 of us were cast after a long involved process, much like you would cast a musical, like I was just talking about. The closest thing, and I'm going way outside the purview of your question, but it might help to answer your question to some degree. The closest thing that I think's come along in a long time since the Monkees that's similar is Glee, which is a TV show about a kind of an imaginary glee club, and the Monkees was a TV show about an imaginary group. But we could all do it. We could all sing and play and act and improvise and dance. Like Glee, they can all actually do that. They can all sing and move and dance and stuff.
I just want to say, I've always appreciated the fact that, a lot of artists, as time goes on and they start to get away from what may have made them popular initially, they sort of want to distance themselves from that, and you seem to really continue to embrace and are so grateful for the Monkees experience.
Well, yes, that's true. And I know what you mean, and I know who you mean also at times. It can be very difficult to sort of reinvent yourself. It can be difficult if you're, say, want to be a dramatic actor, and you get a gig doing a comedy or something, and you're always known. I mean, it's typecasting, and it exists in acting and in music, too. It can be very difficult. In my case, they call it the Leonard Nimoy syndrome. He's an incredible actor, still is. But you get typecast, Superman syndrome, or in music, you get certain type of music, and you want to grow and branch off. The fans don't want you to. They want you to stick with what you do. After the Monkees, well, you see, before the Monkees, I'd already had another series. I was a child star, so I had a series called Circus Boy. And after Circus Boy, I went to interviews as a teenager, and I'd walk in, and there's a bunch of 10-year-old blonde kids walking around, and I'm like 17 years old. And they said, "Who are you?" And so you run into that. It's almost impossible not to. People want you to bring back to them what they're comfortable with. It's like comfort food. After the Monkees, I had decided to go in production, and I went to England, and I started directing and producing, totally out of choice. Maybe in the back of my mind, I knew, because I'd been to a couple of interviews where they said, "What are you doing here? We don't need a drummer." Acting auditions. And so I guess maybe part of me saw the writing on the wall, but I really wanted to get into production. And I did, very successfully. For about 12, 15 years, I lived in the UK doing nothing but directing, producing, writing television shows and films. So in a way, I did sort of do something else. And I didn't do any singing, any music, any acting. And then since then, I've continued to do that. I have continued to do production. And then I got into musical theater. And I was cast in musical theater not as a wacky monkey, but the first major, well, I did Grease, which played the disc jockey. I did a couple of other regional things. And then I was cast in the Disney musical Aida as the villain, as Zosie, if any of you ever saw that. I was the bad guy. And it was wonderful. I was thrilled and grateful to this day to get that huge Broadway credit playing a villain. Singing was a musical, obviously, so I sang a rock musical. But I was so flattered I'd walk out the stage door and somebody would say, I came to the show and I didn't know you were in it, and then I heard your voice and I recognized you. They didn't even know I was in the show. So that was very, very flattering. And that started a whole other career. In Pippin, I was King Charlemagne. You know, semi-dramatic.